difficulties there, but I'm definitely glad that we were able to get all that squared away.
Okay.
So I know you had mentioned that you had mentioned pharmacology. So are you familiar with shadow health at all coming into today?
With shadow health?
Yes.
No, I don't know anything about it.
Okay, wonderful. So we are actually we're a company that has created virtual standardized patients for pharmacology. Actually, just recently at the graduate level, but we started off at the graduate health assessment level. And actually, how my colleague Barry contacted you, your school actually utilizes this in the RN to BSN program for the assessment piece. And I believe it's Shauna Aker.
She's not teaching it anymore.
Oh, is she not teaching that anymore?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Do you know who's teaching that now?
I don't.
Okay. Yeah, she had been teaching that, I think, using it for about 3 or 4 years. So these are basically digital standardized patients, and we'll be able to kind of all walk through them a little bit with you today. And since you're not familiar with shadow health at all, this will kind of give you a nice opportunity to get a little background information on the company, and then kind of show you a little bit of what we've done with the advanced pharmacology piece as well.
Okay. And just so you know my schedule, I have a 10:30 office appointment with a student, sorry. So if I cut out, that's what's going on. Okay, just so you know. Okay.
No, absolutely. So while we'll try to keep it, I'll try to minimize it and try to just get to some of the highlight points. That way we can get you out of here at 10:30.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I'll give you a little bit of a background. Well, I guess before I get into that, what is your can you tell me a little bit about your role at Colorado Mesa?
Okay, so I'm an assistant professor of nursing,
Mm-hmm.
and I am teaching in the nurse practitioner, the doctor of nursing practice is where I'm teaching. And this is teaching students advanced pharmacology, advanced pathophysiology. I also teach this summer I'm going to be teaching the advanced physical assessment courses. So these are to actually teach nurse practitioner students.
Okay. Wonderful.
At the doctorate level.
Yeah.
So,
and how many students do you all typically get in your program?
It's pretty small. So it's growing because we just started the program.
Okay,
so
wonderful.
I would say it's really busy in the advanced physical assessment. It's probably busier because those are the entering students, and that's a required course for even if they're on the master's level, that they're not becoming a nurse practitioner. They still have to take that core course. So that's a core course, as well as the pharmacology. But some of my other courses that are more, advanced into just or specific to the DNP, there's maybe 7.
Okay.
So.
Okay, wonderful. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, give you a little bit of background about shadow health since you aren't too familiar coming in with it today. So I'll kind of give you a little background. So we kicked off back in 2012, and as I mentioned, we started off with the first product that we came out with was graduate health assessment. And that actually kind of kickstarted our launch, and we expanded that into undergraduate assessment. And currently we're actually using a little over 1,300 different allied healthcare tracks across the country, as well as across the world. And we're actually, as of January 2018, we're in over 40% of the graduate nursing tracks in the United States. So we have seen tremendous growth in the nursing community. And because of how successful our initial launch was, we actually started talking to faculty partners about what are some other products that they could be using in their virtual simulation. So we quickly followed that up with some undergraduate products for pharmacology and then mental health and gerontology. And then just in January came out with our graduate level pharmacology simulation. So we came out, so obviously some really nice stuff. And I know you mentioned advanced assessment. And if you kind of like what you see from the pharmacology patients, I know we're a little stretched for time today, but we can always set some time up for you to take a look at the advanced assessment piece as well, since that's something we'll be teaching in the summer.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. All right, so talking a little bit about the program and faculty. So we've heard a lot of different reasons why programs and faculty have needed additional simulation, but really it keep coming back to the most compelling needs have been the ability to measure students' ability clinically reasoned. And then not only more than that, getting some insight into how they're performing, in having a rubric that's not only just valid but reliable, and then being able to get that instantaneous and individualized feedback. And now the really nice thing is that schools are actually being able to use this towards their clinical hour replacement as well, at the graduate and the undergraduate level. Been talking a little bit about the students' needs. So students are asking for increased virtual simulation because, above all, it really gives them a safe environment to practice caring for patients. Really, they're going to give them an opportunity to work on things like the communication, the physical assessment piece, as well as the documentation and the interview organization. We also have our critical thinking and clinical reasoning components too. So really some unique opportunities for as your students are going through and diving in to get some of that individualized time to kind of focus in on those core skills. But really, if you were to take away anything from today, what I always tell people is one of the things that are the thing that makes Shadow Health so unique is our conversation engine. So we are the only virtual simulation on the market that allows your students to communicate directly to the patients without having to use drop-down menus or multiple choice menus. Now, because of how realistic and interactive that tile communication is, it allows this to be classified as a high-fidelity simulation. So it actually allows the students, as they're going to improve their critical thinking ability and really their therapeutic communication as well, all while interacting in this learning environment. And because of how that works, it kind of allows us to be able to, importantly, measure that clinical reasoning as well. So we have those opportunities for the subjective and objective data collection, as well as the opportunity to educate and empathize with the patient. So being able to educate them on the importance of taking their meds at the correct time, and empathizing with them if they're having struggles with taking the meds, or maybe they're having something going on in their life. Taking that extra opportunity to empathize with them is a really cool and important opportunity for the students to be able to take. We also have the information processing piece, the documentation, and the self-reflection, all of which contribute to that grade the students get back. So some really nice opportunities here. And then really talking about the research. Our research is, the research behind virtual simulation in education is not just compelling, but it's continuously growing. So we're actually really excited that we get to be part of a lot of the research being done in this field. And if that's something you're ever interested in learning more about, I can actually send you a couple of these articles after we're done on our call today. It goes into a little bit about the research that went into developing Shadow Health.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. And then finally, if you come out of today and you really like what you see with the presentation for Advanced Farm, what we can always do, and this is kind of just to give you a preview of how integration works. Finding an integration strategy that works for your needs is really important. That's why Shadow Health has an entire team of individuals whose sole goal is to provide that complementary instructional design support to you. Really, the goal is to find a plan that works for you and fulfills the needs that you are asking Shadow Health to fulfill. No, I know that was kind of a high level going through everything, but did you have any questions on anything you saw in there?
No, not yet.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I'll go ahead and move into give you an idea of what the overview for advanced pharmacology is. So this will kind of give you a nice opportunity to see what we have in here. So you can see we have a variety of different patients that span ethnicity as well as gender and lifespan. So you can see we're going to have you can see through here, we're actually going to be able to take a look at the UTI patient, her name is Michaela. So you'll actually get an opportunity to just play through her today. And then what I'll do as well is give you an opportunity to look through here. Then I'll also pull up our learning objectives. Now, obviously, just taking a look at this briefly, does this kind of match up with what you try to teach your students in your pharmacology course?
Well, probably what I would have to do is figure out how to implement this, because what we talk about initially is the like the neurobiology and the neuroreceptors and the beta receptors and alpha receptors, and that gives the students just this background. And then I would have to take, like, say if it's COPD, then that would be covered in the part that covers pulmonary diseases with asthma and other things. So if they were going to simulate a patient, I'd probably assign that maybe as a case study within that unit. So like community-acquired pneumonia, that might be under my antibiotics, but it could also be under, respiratory and hypertension and diabetes. It's kind of nice that you're pulling that together with that one I see on the screen, so that they can utilize that. But how much does this cost? That's going to be a big factor.
Yeah, that's a great question. So all these patients and then the concept labs are $99 a student. And what's really nice, especially for graduate level courses, is if, let's say that this is taught in some of the subject matter is covered in different classes. The students pay that $99 one time, and then they get access to that for the duration of the time that they're in the program. So, the other 2 years, if there are 4 years, if they're in the graduate program, in this case, it's the DNP, they're able to continuously have access to these patients and any upgrades made to them throughout their time at the university.
Okay, does the $99 cover advanced pharmacology as well as advanced physical assessment?
Another great question. So we actually have a multi-license discount. So if whatever product the student would purchase first, they would be at $99. And then the second product that they would purchase would be, they would get 10% off that one. So while they are separate charges, they do get a 10% discount per student off of that second license.
Okay. And then the next question is for the clinical hours that you're talking about, because that would be important, because our students have to have so many clinical hours. So how would that accumulate? Would it be as they go into these different cases, and it would log how many hours they've been in there?
Yes, and we have a team of people that could actually work with you in terms of how you all do. I have a couple of colleagues. I'm actually fairly new in terms of this territory and in this role as well. So I have some colleagues who actually have helped other schools. Specifically, one of my colleagues has helped Chamberlain, as I believe, as well as Western Governors, walk them through, because I believe they require about 650 clinical hours, and I believe the graduate, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, the graduate requirement is like 525, I think. I'll have to double check on that.
Well, we require far more than that, but I know that's the minimum. And the other thing is that we're trying to get some of for the master's level, that's what these hours would come in, because we would try to give them 50 hours of clinical for or 60 maybe for pharm, and then 60 for advanced physical assessment. So we could cover that. But, okay, so I'm curious then as well, where's the reliability to make sure that indeed is the student doing those clinical hours? Because everybody's going to want to cheat, I have a feeling, That's just, we have to look for that. Like, do they have somebody else logging in for them, right?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'll kind of show you a little bit in depth of how the students go about it. So I'll go ahead and transition to the patient assignment. Before I roll over there, I'll also show you, this is actually an overview of the advanced assessment as well. So I can send you a snapshot of this, and then at the end of the call today, if you're interested in taking a look at the advanced assessment, we can set up a time, maybe in the next week or two, for you to sit down and actually look at this as well.
I would like to look at the advanced assessment as well, yes.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so I will go ahead and we can take out your calendar before your student gets there, and we can find a time in the next week or two to go over that. Awesome. So what I'll do, let me go ahead and back out of here, and I'm going to go into the patient interaction. So this is Michaela. She is going to be coming in presenting with a UTI. So this is going to be a nice opportunity for us to go in and be able to talk with her about a couple different things. So we can come in here and start our exam. So this is what your student would be seeing when they come in. So when they log in, they would be logging in with their specific university email. So just like they were to log into, I'm not sure if you all use some sort of learning system like Canvas or Blackboard, but
it's called D2L.
I'm sorry?
It's called D2L.
D2L, okay. But it's just similar to how they would log into that, would be a similar system to how they would log into here. They would have to log in with a unique student ID, or their student email, and then a unique password to them, and then they would be able to get into this simulation here. So we can obviously start off, we'll greet our patient. So I'll kind of demonstrate this a little bit. Hello, Michaela. I am your nurse, Matthew.
Hey.
Now, are you able to hear and see her okay?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So I can ask her to then, how are you feeling?
I'm really not doing so hot. I feel a little feverish, and it burns when I pee, and I have to pee basically all the time.
Okay. So again, really good opportunity to I obviously ask, the establishing question, what brought her in today. Now you'll notice I had mentioned earlier in the call that we actually have a conversation, and that's actually what you're seeing in action in here. You'll notice on the screen here, there's no drop-down menus. There's not going to be any multiple choice options. All of what you're seeing on here is free-formed conversation. The student actually creates and drives 100% of that dialogue. How do you think that style of communication could potentially be beneficial for your students?
I think this would be beneficial a lot in like the preceptorship, because even though you're covering farm, I think that, this it would enable the student to like work actually with a patient with these. So I think it could help them in their clinical hours, actually. So far, it seems to be. It's like, because they may see somebody with a UTI, they may see somebody with, headaches, but they could just go in and then learn how to interact with a patient. And am I able, as the instructor, to see what kind of questions they're asking the patients when they go in to do this?
You are 100% able to. And I'll actually show you what you'll be able to see when the student clicks submit on the assignment. But I'll kind of walk you through this part, and then we can kind of go to the back end and see on the back end. So is that something you said, talking to a patient, is that something your students typically struggle with when they come into your program?
I think it's part of what I would want to make sure that they were able to listen to what the patient's saying and then know the appropriate questions to ask them. I don't know that they would struggle with it, but I would want to make sure that they were competent in that. And a lot of students are looking for ways to get their clinical hours. And so, how many, if we had a certain potential for each one of these $99, then we could potentially offer them this as how many clinical hours would you say one of these units has, or one of these full courses for farm?
Yeah, so there's a lot of good research on that. I know one of our partner schools uses it on a 3-to-1 basis, but 1-to-1 it seems to be the most common theme that we're seeing. So for 1 hour spent in here with Michaela would be equal to 1 clinical hour. So obviously it varies by school. So I could get you a little bit more information, actually set you up to talk to someone who's a little bit more experienced in that than I am.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So obviously you see here, I was able to ask, her establishing questions. So you'll notice there's 3 tabs on here. One of the really cool things about Shadow Health is that you as the student have the ability to click on this tab, and I can actually empathize with the patient. So she came in expressing that she's in a lot of pain. And I can follow that up by saying, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like you're really uncomfortable.
I really appreciate you saying that.
So you have the opportunity then to empathize, and you can all see this on the back end. So you'll notice everything I'm doing is being recorded verbatim in this transcript here. So you'll be able to see that your student took that opportunity to empathize with the patient.
Okay. I have a question. Would I be able to be in this with the student at the same time?
That is a great question. Are you saying like be in a separate remote location?
Right. So I'm in Grand Junction at my house, and I log in. The student says, I'm going to do my assignment on Friday at 10. So I log in, she's logged in at the same time, and I'm just observing what she's doing.
That is a great question. I do know that you can see, like if you were to go on their gradebooks, you could see if an attempt was in process. I am not too sure. And I can actually find that answer out for you in terms of if you can see what's going on at the same time.
Okay.
But I can definitely check on that.
Okay, that's good.
All right, I will make a note to follow up on that with one of my colleagues here. All right, wonderful. So then you can follow up on some really good follow-up questions to talk to the patient about. When did your symptoms start?
3 days ago, I started feeling pretty bad. I was tired and uncomfortable. I kept having to pee, and each time I did, it burned. It was gross, too. The pee looked different.
Okay, so again, and then we can follow that up with, is there anything that seems to make your symptoms better?
drinking less water so I wouldn't have to pee so much and the burning would stop.
Okay. So again, this is a really good opportunity. You'll notice there are 3 tabs down here. We can click this middle one here, and that's actually going to give us an opportunity to educate the patient on the importance of that drinking water is going to be important. And I know that that makes her uncomfortable, but drinking less water is not going to make her better. So again, we can take that chance here. Here we go. I know you're uncomfortable, but drinking less water is not going to make you feel better.
All right.
Again, you are able to see that that's highlighted in a different color, and yes. On the back end, you could actually go through, if you wanted to, a verbatim transcript of your students' interactions and see how they went about everything. So we can then go to her chart here, and we can actually notate. Let's see here, her body. So she's going to have her temperature is 37.7 Celsius.
I'm going to I just shut my door real quick. Hang on a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, some people just came into the building and they're kind of loud, so I'm sorry. Okay, all right.
No worries. No worries at all. So you can see here, we're able to tell that she's running a slight fever here. So we can follow up a couple of other questions. Does anything make the pain worse?
Well, it burns every time I pee, so pee makes the pain worse, I guess.
Okay. Do you have any other symptoms?
My fever was 99.5 when I checked it this morning. I don't have a lot of other symptoms except for the big ones.
Okay, wonderful. So really a cool process as we're going through here to be able to get that. Then you're also going to be able to see in here, you're also going to have a prescribing activity. Now, is that something that you typically have your students work on while they're in your program?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how do you get to that prescribing one?
So right here.
Okay.
So each patient, you're able to select the therapeutic classification, then the drug class, and then the name of the drug to prescribe. Now, there is only one correct prescription, but you get 3 attempts to do that. So this is just an opportunity for you to kind of see how your students will be able to go through and interact with that.
Okay.
So it sounds like you had mentioned earlier that clinical time was something that your students that their students have. Well, how many clinical hours does your program require?
It's like 1,000 total.
Oh, wow.
For the DNP. Now, for the masters, it's different. So the masters are taking advanced pharmacology, advanced pathophysiology, and advanced physical assessment. And so we're needing to put some clinical hours into those programs. And what they do is they actually go with a preceptor. But the students that need clinical hours, like sometimes in my first course, which is the clinical adult practicum, they will not have all their paperwork filled in on time. They won't have contacted a preceptor to do their hours in an actual clinic. And something like this might help them to get some hours started right away in their clinicals before they can get all those documents signed and in place, because they have to have like all their CPR documents, their liability insurance. They have to get a lot of documents in place, and inevitably the students will, there's a few that don't get it in place in time, and class starts, and we're asking for them to have a patient assignment that they have to write a note on. Well, I could see them using this as writing their first note. So they'd write a note on a patient and turn it in to me as part of the assignment, because they turn in weekly notes of their patients. We call them SOAP notes, but I think we're going to change the name of it. But it's actually a note that says the patient came in with these symptoms, what happened, and then what's the research. They have to look up research to support their decision making. So say if they had this patient with a UTI, they'd look up the history. They could get it right here on the patient's chart. And then what they could do is maybe look back on previous notes. It looks like you've got the documentation provider notes on there. Yeah, we do. And then so they could even type some things maybe in there, and then write up a note that says, okay, this is my plan. I'm going to have the patient start this medication, and the reason that we didn't have them take this other medication is because they're allergic to penicillin. And then and then they have to give their rationale for why they chose a certain medication and what would be a potential problem that they would want to watch for. So with this patient, it would be like pyelonephritis, you know, like she looks like she's uncomplicated with the UTI, but what else could be going on that you'd want to make sure you look out for? So I'm going to be looking for those kinds of items in their notes. So somebody comes in with a problem urinating.
So do your students have any opportunities to like virtually practice with in terms of advanced pharm?
They don't. No, they don't. What we would do is we would have to send them to a local clinic, and then they'd get their hours in. But I think this would be a good opportunity for them to get some virtual, if it's feasible. If the people above me say this is acceptable with the AACN for clinical hours, you know, and then we could offer it to students and say, you know, you pay your $99 and you go in here and get your virtual hours. And if this could also apply for patients on their, it's called, I'm trying to think of the name. It's where they log their hours. It's an actual computer place where they, and my brain is just, I'm drawing a blank right now, but they have to put in ICD-9 codes for the patients, how they would do billing, all that. So anyhow, they don't have opportunity, no. So this would be good, I think.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I know I definitely want to be sensitive to your time. I know you have a hard stop at 10:30. So what I'm going to do is there's definitely a lot more we can explore in here, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the back end and the grading. Because I know that's something that you had expressed an interest in taking a closer look at, and I tend to be faculty favorite part. So this is actually, so if I were to click submit on an assignment, this is actually, once a student submits it, them and you get to actually see the immediate results of how they did in the simulation. So you'll see here, I referenced the SPI earlier, but the nice thing is you can kind of see here how your students did in terms of how much time did they spend in the simulation, how much time did they spend interacting with the patient, and then how did they do in their key matters of clinical reasoning. So how did they do in their subjective data collection? How did they do in their medication selection? How did they do in the education and empathy? And then they're also going to be scored on their ability in terms of how they did in patient teaching, and then their prescription writing as well. So I'll take you through this is a nice overview.
Oh, that's fantastic. Prescription writing, good, because they need to learn how to write prescriptions. So.
Yep. Absolutely. What do you think is fantastic about that?
I think it's because I don't know that they have enough experience doing that. Because when they're in their clinics, some of the providers aren't going to let them just go in there and write a note. I mean, they're electronic prescription writing, right? So unless they go through this process to get access to the EMRs in their clinics, they're not going to get the experience writing prescriptions. So that's why I would say this would be good for them to practice it on here. There are some students that actually do get permission to go in and actually write their own notes and write prescriptions, but usually that's because they don't have their prescriptive authority and all that. I don't know. That's why I'm just saying.
No, that's always great feedback. And that's why I always like to ask that question, just so that I can get a sense in terms of, what you're thinking, where your head's at. All right, awesome. So this is I had mentioned earlier the verbatim transcript. So this is everything you're going to see from their students when they click this assignment. So if you wanted to go through every one of your students' verbatim transcript and see, this is kind of, you mentioned concern over cheating. This is definitely one way to alleviate that. So you can see, obviously, did they spend enough time in the exam? Did they ask the right questions? So this kind of is a nice way to counteract that as well. But then as you go through here, you can see our subjective and objective data collection. So you can see here, you'll obviously see these black check marks signify when someone asked all of the questions they could under here. So did they establish a cheat complaint? Yes, they did. And then if you were to hover over each one of these black dots, you can see if a student were to get it or not get it. They have a pro tip on what maybe they could have done to get that, some ways that they can improve, and then also an example question for them. So a great example down here when they asked about the onset and the duration of symptoms, but they didn't find out that they report the fever of 100 degrees that began last night. So pro tip, and you can read through here, asking a patient about the length of their current health issues solicits information relevant to the history of their present illness. Details of their current complaint. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what do you think is good about this part?
I think it's because then they get immediate feedback, and I think that that's one of the important things for learning for students. Now, is the student able to see this too, or just me?
Both of you are. Yes.
Okay, good. So the student will submit they'll submit this, and then they'll get immediate feedback. What they do to me is I get all these students, I have 10 students submitting all their documents, and I'm trying to get them graded before they get their next assignment due, and I'm working really hard at it, but sometimes they're approaching their next document that they have to turn into me. This would give them immediate feedback and help them with their learning, because I know that that's proven to help people with their learning. So, yeah.
No, 100% you're right. And that's, again, kind of the mindset behind why we allow that feedback immediate for not just faculty, but also students. Because the whole goal of simulation is improvement. And if you're going to make a mistake, now is the chance to do it in a simulation, in a safe environment. I'll kind of move to the next point here. This is the education and empathy piece. So obviously, I kind of walked you through how that works in Shadow Health. You can also see opportunities that they did on did they take their opportunities in the simulation to go through and really empathize with the patient or educate them on the importance of taking certain medications. So here's an example that I used earlier. I know you're uncomfortable, but drinking less water will not make you feel better. Okay, perfect. So then you can also compare that to a model statement, which actually you as a faculty member are able to customize what a model statement looks like to you. So you could say the model statement in this scenario would be, I'm sorry that you're experiencing pain and burning during urination and increased sense of urgency. I'll try to find a medication that will help alleviate those symptoms. So that's an example of, just an example of how we did it in this example course, but you could customize that to reflect whatever you wanted to.
What if I didn't want to customize it? Do you guys just have that in there already?
Yes, we do.
Okay, because I don't know that I'd have time to go in and do all that. I mean, eventually I could change it, but
Yep. Nope, that's something that comes in there already.
Okay.
Awesome. And then obviously we have our debrief here. So you can do the recommendation and monitoring. So you can see the model, again, the model note versus what they did, and then they can kind of compare and contrast that immediately afterwards. You have the medication selection. How do they do in terms of their points? So obviously you can see they missed some opportunities here. There's some points on the board. The medication you select, and this is an example of what would happen. The medication you have selected is not the best choice for Michaela. You'll have 2 more attempts, and then she was able to get them on the second try. So she still got points. She got 9 out of 18 points. So there was a couple of them that she didn't get on their first try. But again, all an opportunity for them to go through and get some more access to that information. Also, they also have some patient teaching opportunities here going through. So you need to take the full course of antibiotics. She said, okay, but what if I start feeling better? You still need to take the full course of antibiotics. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Again, so they took that opportunity to educate the patient on why they need to take the medications, what are the desired outcome, and even if you're feeling better, you need to continue to take that full regimen. So again, you can kind of go through here and see all their opportunities that they took to take these 2 medications and what did they talk about, and then talking about the prescription writing. So you can see here, they could have done a little better in this terms of this prescription writing, but the second time they looked like they did pretty well. Did they get it correct? Yes, yes, yes. And then they did not get that correct here. So what is the frequency? What is the duration? And then talking about the field, are they doing it in the correct route? The quantity is right. Are there going to be any refills? So you could kind of mention that that's an important part of your course, and this is actually an opportunity for them to get some immediate feedback on that. Wonderful. Now, did you have any questions on anything you're seeing in here?
No. Is there anything else besides the ones that came up on that first screen? Is there only like 6 types of questions for this? 6 types of classes? I think that first screen that we were on where all those pictures were.
This one here?
No, the very, very first.
Like over here?
It had like that one. Yes, the number 13. That one. Is
Okay,
that
perfect.
all you have is like that many?
Yeah, so we have the 5 different patients, and then we also have the 3 concept labs, which I can briefly take you through. And I'll also kind of give you, these are basically, these are a really nice teaching tool, and I know a lot of graduate faculty actually have these in class. But this actually takes you through some of the mechanisms of the different blood pressure and things like that. So this is kind of an example. You'll be able to go through the physiology of blood pressure and actually able to see the impact of what increasing the peripheral resistance would look like. So really take some of that textbook terminology and turn it into nice visuals. So those, there would be 3 of these in there in addition to the 5 patient interactions.
Okay. I think it looks pretty good. Could you give me the names of some colleges that are, or universities that are using this, and I can connect with them and ask them how they're using it in their courses so I could see how they like it? You said you've got 40% of the graduate.
40% graduate faculty. Now, I will have to see, since graduate pharmacology, I know we're going to set up some time to see the assessment. So there's going to be a lot of schools for assessment. I will try to see if I can find a school for pharmacology, but this would be the first run. So I'm not sure there's any schools that have completed it, but I can definitely find some for the assessment piece.
Okay, good. Because if they're getting their hours for that with their accreditation, then I'd want to know how they're doing that through the nursing boards that are. I think this is a great thing, but to get those hours, I need to make sure that it's going to fly with the accreditation boards.
Absolutely. No, and I can definitely set you up with some people to talk about that. But what were you I know it was a brief overlook, but what were your thoughts on everything you saw?
It looks great. I mean, I'd like to be able to go in and spend some more time maybe on my own rooting around in there and see.
Yeah.
But from what you showed me, it looks good. I'd like to maybe get some access to it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we can do, I guess, a good question I guess to ask is when does pharmacology run typically for you all?
The pharmacology runs in the fall, but this is what I'm thinking is I would use some of this stuff for my clinical practicum this summer if I can figure out how to help them get hours. They have to get 360 hours this summer for that class that runs about 9 weeks, which is a lot of hours for a short period. Basically the students are near graduation. They're ready to be, they're pretty much finished after this course and maybe one more semester in the program. So I think this would be a good class for that group of students. But yes, it's in the fall is usually pharm. I'm teaching pharm this spring, but I'm also going to be teaching it in the fall. So, but usually it's only in the fall, to answer your question.
Okay, that makes sense. And then is assessment taught at the same time?
What's that?
Oh, is physical assessment in the same time then?
Physical assessment is this summer. It's this summer. But I don't know how, there's just a group of students that really need the physical assessment. And that's why we had enough students that we could put the class together. They needed it for other reasons before they could take other classes. So I am teaching it this summer. I don't know any guarantees about when it'll be taught again. If it'll be taught again in the summer, fall, whatever. But so both of the classes, the clinical practicum and the physical assessment, are out this summer. And I'm getting all of the syllabi. I'm rewriting everything for those classes. I picked a new book. I picked the Bates book. The class hasn't been taught. A lot of professors I know use Bates. Okay. So I'm working to develop that course. So.
Okay, wonderful.
Could I get the access by summer or what?
Yeah. So what we could do is 2 things. One, what I'll do is we can set up a time for you to see the physical assessment here in the next maybe week or 2. And what I can do is I can send you the research and exploration video which will give you a little bit of kind of answer some of those questions that you're talking about in terms of integration. And actually it's a 2-part video. So it's a 20-minute overall video. The first 10 minutes, the person who's talking is actually Dr. AJ Kleinhexel. She is the person who created the Student Performance Index, and she actually talks into the research and methodology that went into the creation of that. The second half of that, the 10 minutes, is going to be Chris Fry, who actually he's the director of instructional design. So he actually works with getting this integrated into curriculum and getting that clinical hours. So he'll be able to kind of talk to some of those things that we talked about today. So I can actually send you that information and it give you that video. And then when we meet for the next meeting, if that's in a week or two, I can actually give you access at that time.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Do you happen to have your calendar for the next week or two with you? Because I definitely want to try to get that.
The only times that really work for me are Fridays.
Fridays?
So,
Fridays?
Yeah,
Fridays work well for me. Let me take a peek here at my calendar. Is there any time on Friday that works well for you?
No, not at this time. I don't have anybody on my schedule next Friday, but I use that time to come in and help students work with their projects and stuff. So Fridays are good. I can just block out a time and then we can go from there. So.
Yeah, let me peek at my calendar. I think next Friday would work. I would around this time next Friday work.
Sure. Like
okay.
9.
And this is 9:30 your time, and I'll actually be in the mountain time zone next week, so that'll be 10:30 for me. So
okay, because we're in Mountain time. We're in Mountain Standard.
Oh, okay. You're Mountain time. Okay, wonderful. All right, so we'll do 9:30 next week. Perfect. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and send you an email here in the next couple minutes, and then I'll send you 2 emails. One will be the go-to-meeting for our next meeting, and then I'll also send you a second email with that research and exploration video. And then when we meet next week, I can actually give you all the test drive access that you need, and for both the advanced assessment or the advanced pharmacology, or both, whichever one you would want. And you can, in that way, you can go in and play around, and because I know you want to try to make a decision here soon.
Yes, and I want to make sure that if I'm going to ask students to do it, I better know how to do it myself.
Yeah, 100%. And now, do you have a timeline in terms of integration? How does that typically look for you all?
Well, I've already had to submit my book to the bookstore. It's just a matter of trying to, and I've told the students that are in the class this summer for the practicum that I'm working on things. So, yeah, probably pretty soon I need to make a decision because.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing is with being a smaller company, we are able to work fairly fast. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and send all that information over to you. And if you need any information, because I know you have to submit all of that, but if you end up liking what you see and you decide to go ahead and move forward with either the pharmacology or the health assessment or both, we can work and kind of make sure you have all the resources you need to be successful.
Okay. All right. Well, I have to run. I'm so sorry, but I have to run.
No worries. It was a pleasure talking with you. I'll send you those 2 emails and look forward to talking with you next Friday.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Talk to them. Bye.
Bye.